Hey, what's up, people? How's it going? Today is October 23rd, 2022. It's Sunday. And I want to discuss graffiti writers that were mind-blowing to me. They were so good at what they did, I didn't even bother attempting to do what they did. And one of them I will start off with is Easy. You know, Easy, Jaws, TK. Yeah, Easy was up so much in all the 5 fucking boroughs that I never even bothered to go all city because he was doing tags everywhere, and I love doing tags. So I knew that there was no way on the face of this earth that I could do as much tags as Easy had. Like, yo, I swear, he might have taken a lot of breaks, but yo, that fucking dude put it. Yo, for real, like, and even through this neighborhood, like, everywhere, like, every, like, major hub, yeah, he fucking went in. Him and that whole crew, Easy, Jaws, rest in peace, TK, Send 4, that was on that later leg of it. I don't really remember Send 4 too much on the first run, when the trains were running, in the 80s, they went out hard. Yeah, there's a few of them I don't remember. Josh 5 is another one. Josh 5, yeah, he was up a lot too. But anyway, that whole group of them, they just destroyed all the 5 boroughs, man, everywhere. You know, I wasn't in the early 80s. All right, when they came out in the late 80s, I really didn't know much about Staten Island, so I don't know what they did to Staten Island at that point. I didn't fuck with Staten Island until the 90s, mid to late 90s. So I don't know if they ever had Staten Island at that point. But when the trains were still running, 88, 89, yo, TK, Easy, Jaws, Josh 5, up fucking everywhere, man. Everywhere, man. Every fucking where, man. Like, yo, no bullshit. Like, you'd go, I swear, there was times I'd take the 4 train up to meet my girlfriend. I'm a teenager at this point. I'm assuming they were teenagers. They were about my age. And I would get off on the 4 train up around Mount Eden, the Mount Eden station stop. And I'd walk to 190, no, it was 180, 170 something. I'd go up to the 4 train, but it was Mount Eden I'd get off at. And I'd go visit my girlfriend, and we'd go see a movie, like Coming to America, I remember seeing with her, the very first Nightmare on Elm Street. And when those movies came out and I'd go up there and see her, I swear, like, Easy, Jaws, TK, every single fucking gate, under the 4 line, all the way pretty much to her fucking house, right? Then you get off the fucking train, I meet her, pick her up, go home, down to 42nd Street, everywhere. You get off the train, Easy, Jaws, Josh, Easy, Jaws, the TK, everywhere, all around 42nd Street, this, that. And that was just really how them fucking dudes had it, man. I swear, you go to fucking Shea Stadium, Easy, Jaws, any subway that you got off, any station you got off, they had it. 86th Street, you get up off, even in this neighborhood, down Lexington Avenue, First Avenue. Yo, them fucking dudes put it in. I was under the impression that they were probably driving around a car or something. But then to get that much footwork and the way it was near the subways, I believe they actually just took the train somewhere and just got off and dumped out a bunch of paint and got back on the train and went home. Like, yeah. But they were up so fucking much in all the 5 boroughs. Early on, when the trains were still running, them fucking dudes were up so fucking much, man. I'm not lying, man. Them dudes had shit smashed. To the point where I've said to myself, like, after the trains died and were clean, and you couldn't really write on the trains no more, there was rumors of them being graffiti proof, but I knew that was bullshit because, of course, I tried, Lace tried. Man, we were writing on trains straight up until not too long ago, honestly. But we just fuck around, yeah. Anyway, yeah, when the trains died, there was no more trains, and I'd see my enemies, people I had beef with in the subway, not Easy, Jaws, J&M at all, but I actually said J.A. in that, but he was one of the people I had beef with, and I would cross out in the streets. Let me think, who else? a bunch of these guys that came off the subways. J.A. was already up in the streets at that point also, but nothing like Easy and Jaws and TK and them, nothing at all. And they just, trains got clean, and I just pretty much said, ah, man, look at these guys. Like, you know, if I want to do something, I want to take shit over. That was my thoughts in my mind. And I knew I could never do that with people like Easy and Jaws and TK and them out there, just like with that flat black, just, yo, it was everywhere. So, yeah, it deterred me from going all city. But what I did say to myself is I could keep a pretty good lock on Manhattan Island. That's the way I started looking at it. I said, Manhattan Island, that's something no one could take from me. I'm in Manhattan Island. I'm not just in Manhattan Island. I'm like right smack dab in the middle of Manhattan Island. So all I got to do is go up that way, tear shit up, or go down that way, tear shit up. I got it. Boom, I'm chilling. Manhattan Island, yeah, that's what I'll do, and that's what I did. I did go to other boroughs, of course, but I always Manhattan Island. Always had that shit on lock. Manhattan Island, Manhattan Island, man, fucking Manhattan Island. Yeah, that's the way I started looking at it. And honestly, because of Easy, because of Jaws, because of TK, yeah, because of Josh 5, because of the amount of damage they done, they kept me in my little corner. I'm like, yeah, what am I gonna, like, nothing you could do. Like, if you really lived that life and saw that shit, it was humbling. It really was. The way them guys went at it was fucking humbling, man. It was like, yeah, you couldn't even begin to fathom that type of shit, man. And they had a good run. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm assuming, and not to knock it, but at that point in life, they really didn't give a fuck about the streets, because I would ride in Manhattan Island, and sometimes the cops would go by. They wouldn't even say nothing. If, like I explained once before, I was on like 96 and Broadway or something like that, and I was catching a tag, and the cop asked me, like, why are you riding on them people's fucking building for this, that? Like, the police actually pulled up. I was by myself catching tags. I wasn't as efficient as I was later on. I did a lot of graffiti by myself, but it's hard to look out and write, and especially at that point when I have to look at the wall while I'm writing the tag. Later on in life, I'm able to just write and not even look at the wall. So my shit got ugly, don't get me wrong, my graffiti was pretty ugly, but I'm not looking at it, it's ugly as fuck, but it's there, that's all that matters. Just boom, 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 keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. So yeah, definitely, Easy. Fucking definitely. Can't take nothing from that shit, man. The way that dude tore shit up, man, yeah, nah. City Island, Van Cortlandt Park, I would live it up in the Bronx. Some of that shit was still even around at that point. They were still going at it. Yeah, no, just like, yeah, wow. Just straight up everywhere. Like after JJ died, and the trains were dead, and I moved up to the Bronx. Yeah, you see them everywhere. Fordham Road, 183rd, Webster Avenue, near Top Tomato, like Fordham University over there. They would have that area. They would have the Italian area, Arthur Avenue, 182nd Street, off of Park Avenue, all the way down under the Metro North. Like, yeah, 130s, 140s, like, yo, the Bronx, they had that shit nailed. Manhattan, they had that shit nailed. But, yo, Brooklyn, they had that shit nailed, man. Fucking Queens, nailed. Like I said, I really can't say much about Staten Island at that point in my life, but I could assume they knew Staten Island existed, and they knew that it was a borough that they could write in, so that just the amount of graffiti they had in the other boroughs, I could assume they had Staten Island the same way. And, yeah, so Easy, Jaws, TK, Josh 5, definitely. Now, that's that. Them guys got up so much that they made it so I didn't even begin to fathom the idea of going all city. For me, it's a game. It's all about beating them. Beating. You get me? Win. Be up more than them. That's the game. You follow me? So, that's how I played it, and that's the way I saw it. So that was a game I didn't even get involved with. Don't get me wrong, as I've said, later on, I moved around so much. I lived in every borough at one point for about 5-8 years or something. There was one point where I lived in every borough for a couple of years. So at that point, I was writing graffiti in every borough. So yeah, but nah, I would never, ever even try to say I was an all-city dude. No. Not when it comes to people like Easy and Jaws and TK and them. No. Wow, just fucking wow, man. Fuck yeah, man. There's no other way to put it. It was mind-blowing. It really was mind-blowing. Yeah. Now, with that said, take it to the trains. When I was a youngin', and I'd be on the subway. My father used to have visitation rights to visit me and my brother. They were divorced. He was divorced from my mother. So in the 70s and shit like that. Yo, I'd be taking trains, and I remember my first looks, real wild pieces, was part TDS. All the TDS guys, part TDS had burners from back then all the way up until the trains were dead. Hell, he would even jump around Tishman a few times. You know, all the way up until the trains were dead. Then he kept going with the Fun Factory. Yo, Part really is fucking amazing dude, man. When it comes to graffiti, Part TDS, man. Yeah, definitely. But when it comes to doing pieces and doing burners, T-Kid, TVS, T-Kid, TMB, the Nasty Boys. Terrible T-Kid. I saw his pieces, man. I was blown the fuck away, man. I was like, holy shit. Now, you gotta think back at these times that I'm talking about. This, like I said, with Part, I remember being a child where I wouldn't even be able to really move around much without a parent. My family wouldn't let me. My father would take me on the subway and Part pieces. Boom. Oh, shit. You know, 6 train, TDS and shit like that, man. The Death Squad. I'd be like, wow, look at that, man, you know? And yeah, Part definitely was like something that was like, wow, look at that. But then when I saw T-Kid's shit later on, I'm like, whoa. Like, I couldn't even begin to fathom how he got a can of spray paint to do that shit. Like, he was already very, very technically inclined to use the tools of graffiti. T-Kid, you could tell. It was just so much crisper and cleaner and thin little lines. At one point, I started thinking that motherfucker was using a marker for his outline. You know, I thought about it. Like, he might have been using, like, just you fill up a nice flooded marker with, like, marsh ink. You do all the wild colors in it. Real nice and tight. That's what I used to think, but not all his outlines were in black. As a matter of fact, very seldom. I mean, he used black a lot in outlines, but, you know, I would see other colors and this and that, and they're just as tight. I'd be like, wow, look at that shit, man. Like, like, he knew how to really get cans to, like, do shit that he wanted it to do. Yeah, T-Kid, man, definitely. I'm not talking, like, whole cars and shit, like, just them panel pieces that T-Kid used to do with, like, those characters and, like, that just the whole idea, like, fucking, yeah, man, walking on the moon, all that shit, and with Boozer, and, wow, just, yeah, a lot of real beautiful, beautiful fucking pieces, man. So much amazing. He did them pieces so wild. That shit was so mind-blowing. At this point, let's be real. All right, with Part, I'm talking about when I'm like 8, 9, 10 years old or something like that. Yeah, now with T-Kid, I'm talking when I'm like 13, 14 years old. I mean, T-Kid was out back then too. I just didn't witness it. But like on the one line, wasn't really taking it much. I mean, yes, 42nd Street, Times Square, my father, this, that, but we weren't going up the Upper West Side, so I never actually got on the one line at that point. But what I was exposed to was Part TDS on the 6s. But then later on, like I've said, T-Kid, man, that shit would be like, wow, like on other lines, like the 1s and shit like that, and I'd be like, holy shit, like, yo, I'd be like looking at it, and like, how the fuck did he get that, and at one point, you actually start thinking like he's mixing his own paint, like making his own spray paint or something. Like it was that wild, like the colors that I was seeing, or maybe the use of colors and the blending of the colors and just the outlines and the characters and that tightness and that wild shit, man. I was like, yo, wow, like there's nothing I could do. Like I'd be laughed at. I'd be a joke if I was to go on the subway with an outline and a piece, like knowing that something else like that was out there. That like T-Kid was doing something that amazing. It was almost like, why bother? Honestly, why bother? And don't get me wrong, I love the vandalism part of it. Hey, I love to be a vandal. But I honestly think that if I was more artistically inclined and thought more about pieces, that I probably still never would have fucked with it. Just that, like, that shit would shut you down. And that was the purpose of graffiti. I remember once he even wrote that, burn this. I forget what it was, or burn that, burn this, or something like that on one train. Like, they would compete against each other doing burners. And then I remember the TVS and the TFA wars with graffiti, man. It was like beautiful burners, just like, yo, motherfuckers do beautiful burners and shit wouldn't even run, yo, we get crossed out. And then them other, like TFA, TVS, they were going at it for a hot minute. I remember watching that shit. But yeah, T-Kid made it so it was like, why even bother picking up a can of paint and trying to do a piece? Like, honestly. And those are the panel pieces. They're a real tight, amazing artwork, man. Fuck yeah, T-Kid. Now, of course, you have other people that did whole cars that, you know, did real nice whole cars and shit like that, lace and stuff like that. A lot of people did real nice whole cars. But, yeah, that was some mind-blowing shit, man. I'll tell you who else blew my mind. Them Destiny Crew dudes, like Show, Dome, DC3. Yeah, fucking mind-blowing shit they did. They came out of the woodwork with that shit, man. Definitely fucking stopped that shit, man. Boom! Like, just stopped everything in motion, man. Yeah, when the Destiny's Crew came out, yeah. With that stuff, I mean, I believe they all were out at one point or another writing, and maybe they switched tags. But when I started just noticing it as Show, Dome, DC3, and Destiny, this, that's when I was like, wow, these dudes are putting it in, you know. I don't remember them earlier than that. It's just they came out. Maybe they wrote something else or something like that. But yeah, Destiny's Crew too. Very mind-blowing shit. The whole cars, stuff like that, you know. The pieces weren't as technical as T-Kid, but just the whole thing in itself. It's no comparison, you know, when you're talking about T-Kid. You know, it's like the Atari Hanzo sword. You ever hear that? Kill Bill, in the movie Kill Bill? Remember when they get the sword from Atari Hanzo, and he says, well, how good of a sword is this? And then one of them says, well, you can't. The only way you can compare an Atari Hanzo sword is to another Atari Hanzo sword, like the Japanese samurai sword. It's like there's nothing else you can compare it to on Earth. And that's pretty much the way I saw T-Kid, man. You got a few people that came real close. Duster was real good, you know, but yeah, nah, T-Kid, man. Fuck yeah. He didn't have to do all the whole fucking, I mean, he would do groups, like collaborations with people, and it would wind up being a whole car and stuff like that, and spread it out under the windows. But yeah, his under the windows shit, man. Yeah, that shit's like the Atari Hanzo sword, man. You know, like I said, the samurai sword that's made by, Sonny Chiba was in the movie. Sonny Chiba, Street Fighter, the original Street Fighter. Old karate flicks, yeah. Atari Hanzo sword. Yeah, that's how that shit is. It's like the best of the best, man. Definitely. Yeah. Now, what else were we going to say? Nowadays, I remember crossing out trains, whole trains, 10 cars, when Van and Ghost and them were trying to do whole trains. It was a big spectacular thing. Easter, they winded up pulling it off. I let it go because he let Lace and KK1 do whole cars on their whole train. So it's 10 cars, 2 of them. One was Lace, one was KK. I wouldn't say I necessarily let it to like be bragging about myself or nothing, but I did cross that shit out like 2 or 3, 2 times before that. I believe that was the 3rd time they attempted to do it or something like that. I don't know. I was going down there. I'd look at shit. I didn't have much space. I'd be stuck. I talked a whole big episode about it. I'm going to try and breeze through it real quick. But I'm on the catwalk like this. I see a whole car. I'm not even reading this shit. I'm just seeing what crews they're pushing and what tags they're writing at the end of it. If it's someone I don't agree with, I cross this shit out. You know? That's the way I was rolling at that point. I walk through the whole place before they pull out. I literally wait until like the lights go on one side. I know, okay, now they're starting to pull them out. I literally start, I would have already dogged that one. And I literally just start dogging them as the lights are going on and as they're pulling them out. I'd scribble out people's whole cars. And like I said, when people were doing these whole trains back then, it was a few attempts. Venz actually wrote something about it or spoke about it before, and he mentions me as shutting that shit down a few times until KK and Lace were able to do whole cars. You know, so we have a little 357 mixed in there. That was actually Lace that did that conversation with them. I didn't talk to nobody. I just kept to myself and did my thing. Lace said jump, I said how high. Let's put it that way. So now, Lace told them, look, RD will stop crossing out if 357 had something to do with it or something like that. So then then Ghost, whoever the fucking was, all right, this, that. So Layson, KK did it, and I didn't cross it out. I did stand in front of it before it pulled out. I was touching it. It was sticky. I did see it. I could have. I was there. And even played around. With like, no, just fucking around. You know, because, John John was like a little devil on my shoulder. He's like, yo, fuck them, man. This shit don't say RD. That shit don't say JJ. Yo, fuck them, you know? For real, little John John was like a little devil on my shoulder. Do it, do it, do it. Yeah, I love that motherfucker, man. Rest in peace, John Zavolis, man. But anyway, getting back to this whole thing. Nowadays, you have people doing whole trains, like every fucking weekend. I mean, it seems like that, yeah? At least every month, there's a whole train coming out of one of these tunnels out here somewhere. I don't think they're doing them in the yards. It's kind of windy, and I don't know. Yards are a little freaky nowadays. But I think they're doing them in the tunnels. But, yeah, it's like every fucking 3 weeks or something, there's another whole train. Like, I mean, 10 whole cars pulling out. And that's more than we ever did on the subways, man. As far as it goes with one bomb, I mean, don't get me wrong, what we had done, it was done 3 times before then, or 2 times before then, I believe. Let's just call it, before the Easter one that we were just talking about. I believe Kane won. Tracy's boy, he's dead. I believe he did it once. He did a bunch of them with like Alice Cooper and, the rock and roll star Alice Cooper. Welcome to My Nightmare, shit like that, yeah. Bicentennial, I think Tracy did a Bicentennial. Tracy 168, but I don't think it was a whole train, it was a whole car. But I remember Bicentennial having something to do with something somewhere. I think that was the year, 1976, that Kane did it. But I don't know. For some reason, Bicentennial was popping up in my head. I mean, if I had more time and I didn't actually just do my videos the way I do it, I could actually sat down and built a platform of how to spit this. But I really do just turn the camera on and start talking. But all right, so you had that. Then you had Lee, and then Lee, the Fab Five, Mono, Slug, Lee, Slave, there's a 5th one, Mono, Slug, Slave, Lee. I can't remember the 5th one. It ain't that fucking Fab Five Freddy. He's fucking like 6th or 7th, man. Alright, anyway, yeah, the Fab Five. I can't remember the 5th player. There was a 5th one, man. Yeah. Anyway, Slug. Damn, that's going to drive me crazy because I know I'm going to remember it once I turn this thing off and I start editing. Well, not me editing. I just give it to my son and he loads it on the computer. But yeah, I know I'm going to think of that guy, who he was. Anyway, nowadays, whole cars are like whole trains. Not whole cars. It's like 10 whole cars to a train. And it's being pulled out on a regular. So now I do believe that you youngins out there, the newer generation, has bypassed the graffiti movement during the subway era. As far as it goes with the outsides. Insides, it's different. You have to literally write on every train, on every line, or something like that. And the insides, I don't know, they might not buff it, but I don't know. I'm not encouraging people to do insides, but it's missing the insides. The graffiti movement now on the subway is missing the insides. But I get it. There's no reason for it. There's no reason for it. I get you. Like, tags are a thing of the past, actually, if you really sit down and think about it. So now, as far as it goes with the subway movement of nowadays, I believe it passed us back in the days. Past any era ever back then. Now, I'm also starting to say that for the streets. I believe now, the people that are hitting the streets are hitting them harder than they've ever been hit. And I actually am saying that because I just watched some documentary, what is it, JW documentaries or something. A guy is from this neighborhood, he videoed me and D3 talking a lot, and he downloads these videos and he uses our conversation that we've had with him, and that's what he's supposed to do. We did it for him. He's from the neighborhood. So yeah, he was talking about like how the graffiti nowadays is, and on that thing, I agree with it 100%. It was brought, of course I know because I'm tagged in it, so I watched it, I'm in it, so I sit there and I watch this thing, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of like fucking crazy, Should JW something? I'm gonna try and put the link in there, but you guys probably know. I believe it's JW Documentaries is what he goes by. I was just talking about him a couple episodes ago, but anyway, yeah, it's like the train movement. Now you look at the streets too, and things are different. Like I could show you pictures. I've done it before about when I'm talking about when the trains died. Everyone's running around doing tags, and I was trying to think of who's the first person I can remember that actually just started running around doing fill-ins. Of course, fill-ins with tags and stuff like that, but really set out and said, I'm going to write fill-ins all over the streets of New York. And I still haven't really been able to pinpoint that. No one's really gave me much help as far as it goes with comments, but I do believe that would even fall under Jaws. Jaws was doing that early on. TKA kind of early on. TKA. JA was very instrumental in doing the throw-ups. Then later on, MQ was out back then too. MQ was big on that shit, yeah. Those are the guys that actually started the VIFA's another one. Yeah, those are the guys that really started the throw-up scene, the bubble letter scene in the 5 boroughs. I was always a tagger. I'd like to do the tags all over the place, but yeah. Now you look at the bubble letter scene, throw-up scene. I don't know what you guys call it nowadays. I feel like I'm using antiquated terms, like old technical terms or whatever. Graffiti lingo today might be different, but yeah, you look at this shit now. Like after that guy wrote that tag over me. What? Tocer, Tocer. You know, and then Anso, I found out now, down below. He didn't go over me, Anso, A-N, but I was like, what the fuck does that say? Like QR or something like that? But after that video, and now like looking around, and I've actually been moving around a little bit in the city and stuff, and yeah, that dude's up everywhere, man. Like, I believe he's up more at Anso I'm talking about. The other guy, Tosa, I still don't really see him up. But the other guy, Anso, that I'm talking about, A-N-S-O, he does some real nice straight letters, too. But, yo, I believe that dude's up more than J.A. was. When J.A. was in his prime in New York City, yeah, it's just different spots. But it's not much different as far as it goes with being up. As much as he's up right now, it's probably as much as J.A. was. Yeah. And that's just what I'm seeing right now. I don't know what the guy's career is going to wind up being later. But, yeah, like him, TD, also, from up in the Bronx, is up probably just as much. Yeah, that was as much as someone gets up. The amount that someone's up now, like those guys I just mentioned, Anso and TD, it's like the amount that like JA was up, or MQ or something like that. MQ, no, he kind of, I don't know, he just never hit the mark, man. He was never really smashed like that. But he was up, don't get me wrong. MQ was up, man. Yeah. Yeah, that's like, yeah, these guys now in the streets are actually surpassing the dudes that were from the yesteryear of graffiti from back then. I in that video that I was just talking about, JF or JW documentaries or something like that, they explain how within these past 2 years, it's been more graffiti ever written, most graffiti ever written in New York City has been written now during the pandemic. And I believe that shit because it was like overnight. It was like BLM all over the place and spray paint. It's still graffiti. Let's be fucking real. It might not be a tagger, but all that Black Lives Matter and ACAB and all that shit all over, hey, it's technically vandalism. It's technically graffiti. So yes, that would have to count. And that's true. Between that and all the dudes, I mean, I was even out there early on with Skid, OJ, A1s I helped around with a little bit. And yeah, it's just a totally different ballgame. Now, to me, it's too easy to the point where it should almost not count because there's no one enforcing the law. You know, it's not like during the Giuliani administration where you would have a lot of police and you could go to Rikers Island for 6 months. Now it's like they probably won't even arrest you. If they do, you're not going to go through the system for days on end. You'll be out in an hour or two, from what I understand. Yeah, sorry about that. This thing cut off on me. It's been a half hour and it cuts off. But like I was saying, nowadays during this pandemic time or during the way the court systems are working things, you don't get arrested really. I mean, you'll get arrested, but you'll be, what, an hour, 2 hours, you're in and out. You got people out there bashing people in the head and doing all types of shit, getting in and out 2 hours, 3 hours. So I believe that you have to take that into consideration Whereas they got an easier situation now compared to how it was then. But it's getting done, and get it while you can, right? I mean, that's the rules, right? Shit, yeah. Yeah, shit, sleeping. I remember the blackout. Very first blackout. Of course, I wasn't running around writing graffiti or nothing, but I was a child. And I remember, a bunch of shit going on. And then later on in life, I remember hearing about the blackout and the graffiti scene. How people were taking advantage of it and doing whole cars and writing all over the trains and stuff like that. And, the very first blackout in the 70s. During that time, a lot of people took advantage of it and rode on trains and stuff. And, people don't sit there saying they're easy. They look at it like, wow, them dudes got over, man. It's smart. It's a smart thing to do, And I agree with that. What else we're going to say? Yeah, that's about it, people. Yeah, those guys, mind-blowing shit. Hey, here, look. I painted this the other day. He's the Hulk with a can of red spray paint, like he did that, and he's like, hee. Yeah. And I thought that's cool. This thing's for sale, man. Get at me on Instagram. My Instagram is Robert_Dyer_RD357. Woo! Take care, people.